All right, and welcome back everybody to the next video here. Last time we had a look at painting and erasing, and I'd like to look a little bit more at some of the other options here. You have so many tools. Let's look at what some of them do here. So uh, with the paintbrush, we learned we could paint and we could erase, but sometimes you need a little bit more specifics, a little more detailed area here. And you can do that getting really close and trying to do some stuff, but we also have some of these other tools called selection tools. And there's a whole bunch we're going to be looking at for different purposes, but I'm going to start off with the most basic one here. So this rectangular marquee tool. Now, you've probably used this in a lot of programs, but it can work a little bit different in Photoshop. For instance, you've probably wanted to do this to grab this, and you would think you could move something once it's been selected. You will notice that is not the case in Photoshop. That's not how the selection tool works. Or what we can do is select something and delete it. However, be careful. We've got this what's called fill. I'm going to fill with the foreground color. It's basically saying, if I'm deleting this, what do you want to replace it with? Now, at the beginning, that is when I did the foreground color, that is currently red, so that's not what I want to do. But if I hit delete and I switch this to the background color, that's going to give me a more realistic, the thing that I'm expecting here. Now, the other issue is once you've selected something and I choose a different tool in, say, Paint or other programs, that selection would go away, but you can see the selection is there stuck. And this is for really powerful, great reasons, but it takes a little getting used to. The other thing about a selection is we can use it to, say, copy and paste or delete and do things, but we can also use it for what's called masking or isolating an area of our screen. So when you have a selection made, you are only allowed to change what is inside that selection. It's basically everything else is being ignored. So notice I've now got my paintbrush here and I start painting. Nothing happens until you can see I get close. I'm inside the selection there. That's what's being allowed to be changed. So that whole idea, if I could pick that up and move it, well, I can now, and it stays there, I could now paint another area there if I had a particular selection that I wanted. So we use this what's called masking as well. So masking comes from the idea of masking tape. Well, masking tape comes from masking, but it's the idea that you could paint or tape off an area and have a nice sharp crisp line so that even if I'm painted and went over the edges, I can peel it away later on. It leaves me this really nice sharp edge there like so. The problem, though, is that once you've got that selection, we got to get rid of that selection. Maybe I want to paint something else out here. So you've got two options for that. You can go under the Select menu, and you will see there is a Deselect option, and beside that is Control D. And because you're going to be doing this so much, I would recommend remembering that Deselect or Control D there. Because we're going to use that. So just to show you that we also have a few other options for selections. We've got the rectangular marquee tool, but if I click and hold, you can see that we've also got a circle here. So if I wanted to paint a circle, maybe a different colored circle here, I could go blue, and you can see I could, spend a bunch of time just filling that in and actually creating a nice circle. Or if not, you might have seen, some street performers do this with spray paint. They kind of mask it off. And let's say when I'm done, Control D to deselect. And now I can go and paint anywhere else that I want. We also have a more organic kind of shape here. This is just below that is the lasso tool. This is a selection tool that allows me to kind of draw any shape selection that I wanted. And it will then select that area. Now, if I wanted to make this solid, the paintbrush, I could make a really big paintbrush. That would be a nice way of doing things, or a lot easier than what I just did. Or if we go down here, here's another tool. It might be hidden under what's called the gradient tool. To begin with, it's the paint bucket tool, which you've also probably used in some basic paint program before. This just dumps paint as far as you can see. And the nice part about having a selection made is that it's not going to dump and fill the entire screen. It's only going to fill up what we have selected. So let's keep going here. I've got a couple other ones. There's the final one I want to look at, though, is the polygonal lasso tool. So it works a lot like the lasso tool, but for straight sides. So you essentially here just click, and you can see I get a little line. But if I click, I can click again, click, 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 click. And if I want to finish this off, I double click, and it will draw a line back to the start and create that kind of shape for me. And this gives me just a more sharp-edged organic shape that we could use as well. There's one more under here called the magnetic lasso tool. We'll get into that a little bit later. It's not my favorite tool here. So if I'm wanting to mask or select things, my favorite go-tos are the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool, lasso, and polygonal lasso tool. In which case you could start to create any kind of shapes and also do just some interesting masking effects to create interesting things. Control D to deselect. And then if I wanted to, I could then erase everything, or remember, we can select all, or I could draw a box around it if I wanted to. And I can do that clear, or now we know if I hit delete, it's going to fill the contents. It's going to ask me, how do you want to deal with getting rid of this stuff? In this case, I want the background color to fill everything, and poof, it will be gone like so. So there is a few other little tools. Just let me look and see if there's any else I want to cover here. We've got our paint bucket tool. We'll deal with the gradient, the eraser, our selection tools. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave that for the next one. Just remember, really important thing, and a really common thing if you forget is, let's say I've made a little selection here, and I zoom in and I'm working on another part of my my picture, and I start wanting to paint, and you'll find I can't paint for some reason. This is super, super normal. It's because you've forgotten there's some kind of selection, or sometimes that selection can be as small as like a tiny 1 dot pixel that you didn't even see. So if you're ever having that problem, the first thing you want to look at is go under select, see if that deselect is up, because if it's not, if nothing's selected, you can see that their deselect is grayed out. You can't do that. So if it is up there, that means there is a selection made. Sometimes it's because you forgot it was there. So let's leave it at that. There's some extra little features on painting before we go on to our next video.